your role as a designer for your client, or if if it's their own holiday house, they're going to want to generally bring family and friends. So they want to make that experience the same as if they were using it as a business. Your role as a designer is not only to do your regular job, but is to create that holiday feeling and to infuse that in every moment in the property that you can.
Hi, I'm Beth, the founder of More Time to Design and your host of the Design Dialogues podcast. I've been a designer for the last 12 years and I've run my own studio for 5. And I know how hard it is to run a successful business. You not only need to be great at designing, but you need to be great at all the other things as well. I created More Time to Design, a software platform to help designers run efficient studios, and I've created the Design Dialogue podcast to help us all learn together. Each week, we will meet professionals who are at the top of their game doing things that help us run our studios. We'll have conversations with social media managers, interior design mentors, copywriters, stylists, photographers, suppliers, and also designers who have been in the game for a long time and who have such a wealth of knowledge to share. I hope that each week you feel inspired and informed at the end of each of our design dialogues. So join me for the Design Dialogue podcast. Welcome to episode 18 of the Design Dialogues podcast. This week I am talking with Simone Mathews from Soul Home. Did you know it is 9 weeks to the start of 2024? It is usually around this time of the year that we all start to think about what we are doing in our businesses and maybe some things we might like to do a little differently. I am sure a lot of you who are listening are currently trying to wrap up projects before the end of the year, and so thinking about a new software platform is at the bottom of your to-do list. However, if you can spare a few minutes, the team and I would love to show you how More Time to Design can transform your business and mean that 2024 is your best year in business, both from a project perspective, but most importantly, financially. For everyone who books in a demonstration before the end of 2023, we will extend the free trial period so that even if you are madly wrapping up projects, you will still have plenty of time to become familiar with More Time to Design and be ready to start 2024 with a bang. I will pop the link to book a demonstration in the show notes. Also, if you are enjoying the podcast, I would love for you to leave a review. Reviews are one of the best ways for people to find the podcast. If you are unsure of how to leave a review, I will put in the show notes some simple instructions to follow. I really do appreciate you taking the time to leave a review. This week on the dialogue, I chat with Simone Mathews from Soul Home about how she has nailed creating the perfect holiday home. We also talk about her other love, which is helping people understand the build process before they start building, so everyone involved has a much better experience. I really hope you enjoy this dialogue with Simone. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Design Dialogues. And this week I am joined by Simone Mathews from Soul Home. Hi Simone.
Hey Beth, lovely to see you today or to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. So I love to start by asking everyone, what can you see out your window today?
Oh, I'm actually really blessed at the moment because we are living in what I call the roundabout where we're renting. So I can see the ocean right in front of me. It is like the best view I could ever dream of. I almost don't want to move out of this house. So yeah, full ocean view this morning.
Oh, how perfect. And we're recording on one of those, well, it's quite a hot Sydney day, but it's one of those perfect spring Sydney days. So pretty idyllic spot for you today. Sounds great.
Absolutely.
So I would love to hear a bit about your business and where you have gotten to today. For anyone who doesn't know Simone and Soul Home, Simone is the absolute queen of creating the most beautiful holiday homes where you just want to spend long weekends with friends and family. So how did you get to that point in your business?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and probably one that we hear a lot of is I never set out to, become this specialist in the holiday industry. I always say this industry, a niche found myself. So
Yeah.
if I give you the short version of the long story is basically we fell in love with an old farmhouse down in Gerringong. My husband already had a construction company. I was an interior designer, and we went, let's do this house. And instead of renovating, restoring it and selling it, and only one person can enjoy it, we're like, why don't we operate it and open up accommodation? And we're like, how hard can it be? We know how to build and design, and we'll just open it, like, come on. And let's just say it didn't go that way. We made lots of mistakes, and weaved our way through. And then that property was known as Solo Gerringong, and it became a huge success. We basically created a new standard of accommodation down on the South Coast, and if I dare say, within New South Wales.
Yeah.
So that is how I got into the accommodation business. At that point, I still was not doing client work at all. It was all just purely for our own projects. And again, how I'm doing client work right now, I don't know, because you actually cannot find my services. It's like a maze. And if you find me, you you can get
it's almost
me.
Like if they can find where your
Yes.
services are, that's the reward. They get to work with you.
Kind of, but it's just people always go, oh, I can't find your services. And I'm like, I just never set up my business in the beginning to go out and be like, I'm going to be an interior design firm, studio, and I'm going to specialize in holiday accommodation. It literally has just been an organic process. And I have the most amazing clients who, if I was to paint a picture of what my clients are, they are generally professional couples. They're A-type personalities. They're really busy. Yeah. And they just want to hand over the keys to me. So most of my clients will go buy a house on the South Coast, or a block of land, and they will go really deep in what they want. And then I literally will arrange the right architect, building designer. I'll go through the council process. I'll appoint the right builder. And then I'll do my, what I'm meant to be doing, the design service, right through to the turnkey, to they literally arrive and they're on holidays. So it's just been this organic process that's happened. And I still laugh that how, what, why is this how Soul Home became, what it is today. But it's basically my design business has merged my love of houses and development that I do, not just design, and then my love of travel. And that has niched me into this market that I am today. So it's pretty amazing. It's been a pretty wild journey.
That's awesome. So, okay, as per usual, so many questions come out of that for me. When you first did like the first Soul, was that in the early days of Airbnb, or had Airbnb been around for a while? Because kind of, I think pre-Airbnb, that concept of hiring a house and all of that kind of stuff wasn't as popular as it is now. Like, was that kind of in the mix for you, or was it just good timing?
So Airbnb was around, but like you said, it's not like everybody had an Airbnb. And I like it when people go, oh, do you do Airbnbs? I'm like, no, because I'm like, Airbnb is a brand. It's like how people say, instead of plasterboard, they say gyprock.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's actually the product. It's plasterboard, gyprock's a brand. So that's what Airbnbs come like, go their marketing, because they've done it really well. So Airbnb was around, but it definitely wasn't what it is today. Not everyone would go, if you said, oh, it's Airbnb, they're like, what's that? So it was definitely, around, but in the infancy of it. But what I did from the beginning is, maybe, I think because I have such a business mindset, I was like, I never set it up to be an Airbnb.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-Airbnb, but I'm always like, why would you just create a property to put under someone else's business model, and you're defined by that? So I had timing on my side. If it was today and I went and did Solo Gerringong, it would be a whole different landscape, and it wouldn't have happened the way it did. So timing, 100% yes to it. And I just was aware of the Airbnb model from the beginning. I had some amazing advice and mentors. I'd researched a lot from Byron Bay at that time, because holiday properties up there, they were thriving. And that was the place to me where I was like, they're doing it so well. I can do that. I've just got to find a way to be able to do it in a destination that is, not one of Australia's main tourism industries. And I remember I got the most amazing advice by a business owner up there who said, you make your property the destination, and then they find the local area where they were like, in Byron, we can't do that because Byron's the destination, and then they go find the accommodation. So that just was like a light bulb moment that went off in my head. And I said, and I still say that to people today, I'm like, if you can do that, you have your own brand, you have your own business, you have your own repeat customers coming back because you're the destination. And to me, that's the goal of a successful business within that industry.
Yeah. And because how long ago was that first Soul?
I really should know all these dates. So I don't know the years, but I work it out by my children.
Oh, yeah.
So when we moved down there, so we'd bought the house 2 years prior and we'd rented it out just so we could understand the area. And we were in the middle of doing a development in Sydney because, again, we did not have a plan to go buy this holiday property. There was none. We weren't moving to the South Coast. We were more than happy in our life. So when we moved down there, it was my eldest son was finishing year 5.
Okay.
And to put it in perspective for today, he would be finishing year 12 this week, but he left and is doing carpentry. Okay. So I think it was 2016, 17, like that. But it's been, so that's when we first started construction. I remember we opened Melbourne Cup because we had a massive ladies' day and there were still trades all through the yard. It was chaos, but so it's been a while. Literally, it's been my whole son's high school career.
Yeah, wow. Because that's really interesting because, like, I mean, for those of you who don't know, Gerringong is about an hour and a half from the city centre. Down the south coast. And it's a beautiful spot. It's kind of like, it's on the coast, and then you can go inland a little bit to Berry, which is that beautiful kind of country town, which is such a kind of, it's been a landmark for ages because they've just mastered, well, they've got berry donuts, so, but I would say that it wasn't really on the map until Soul was there. And now there's quite a few kind of, there are these, for want of a better word, designer holiday homes in Gerringong. And so you've kind of really set the benchmark and really started the ball rolling for that part of the South Coast.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people who've said, oh, you put Gerringong on the map. And I was like, no. And then a couple of years ago, I was like, yeah, actually we did, because the other side of that business was I invested a lot into PR. So we, again, my other advice is don't just go and design an amazing house and make it look magazine worthy and wait for people to find you. You have to go out and find your target market and your guests. So to me, that was PR. So it went crazy. Like I said, timing was on our side, but we also put everything into it. So we had, we were featured in Qantas, we were everywhere. We just, it took off. So it did put Gerringong on the map. Like people are quite familiar with Bunker House, which is in the same town. And so Neil from Future Flip, he said, it was like, you literally put it on the map. You did the hard work for us. So it has become this little coastal town that people are starting to like, and it's the mini version of Byron because it is getting that, I hate to say it, but it is becoming that kind of cooler place to go to. And that's where, there's a fine line. It's great for, if you've got accommodation businesses, but it's also making sure that that area stays, what it is, that community feel. Because after living there as well for 4 years, it's such an amazing place. So,
Yeah. And it is interesting, like, these pockets come up, Gerringong is obviously south of Sydney, but more kind of up on the north side. It's a little bit further, but around like Port Stephens and Anna Bay up there, like there's other little pockets where, these designer holiday homes are coming up. It's really interesting. So you obviously had, from like day one, you knew that you couldn't just build the house. You had to have the photos, the marketing, the Instagram account, all of that kind of stuff. So that was very much in your mind from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I always say again to people, when you're doing a holiday property, it's a business. So many people go into it thinking, oh, this is going to be fun. It's a hobby. I get to go fluff cushions and put a bottle of champagne in the fridge. So I'm like, oh, it is so not. It is a lot of hard work, and there is a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. It's also a really expensive business to run. So I went into it with business intentions, just the same as when I'm setting up a design business, or if it's, we're doing a development, you've got to go into it with business intentions, because unless you're interested, in a holiday property, costing you money. Basically, I say to people, if you're not making money from this, then you are better off to go and pay for a holiday instead of paying for someone else's.
Yeah.
And so many, I would almost say that 70% of people, if they actually weigh up all their costs, are not making an income from it. And there's two business models you can go from. You're wanting to get an income because it may be paying off your property, or it's an investment property where you're happy to not make an income and you're happy for the expenses to just, balance each other out, and you're banking on the property going up in value. So there's two different models. And I think a lot of people just don't understand that and just think, especially with the whole, post lockdown, everyone bought Airbnbs thinking, oh my goodness, this is a license to print money. And you know what? For a year it was, because it was just domestic tourism. But I was like, this is not normal. So there's a whole bucket of accommodation businesses out there that are like, what's happened? Like, the industry's dead. I'm like, no, it's not. This is normal. This is actually normal. What you had isn't. So yeah, to answer the question, yes, I 100% had this, very much structured with what I was going to do.
Yeah, right. And so people who come to you for design work, are they coming to you because they want to set up a holiday home business, or are they coming to you because they want you to build them a beautiful holiday home that they can use for their family and friends?
There's two. So I've got two clients.
Yeah, right.
I have my clients who, like I said earlier, they buy their property and they want their own holiday house. It's private. They're not interested in building and design and renovating and setting up. They just want it done. And they live away from the property. That's one client. And then my second client are people who are going into it as a business. So I'm almost doing the design, doing the same thing, the design, the build, coordinating everything, but also mentoring them as such along the way and setting up their business.
Yeah, wow. Gosh, I mean, as you've described, it kind of, you fell into it, and you kind of, that's such a really interesting business model, because I do think there are so many people that think it's easy. Like, it's just, it's fine. It's an easy business to have, but yeah, gosh, it sounds like a lot of work.
It is so much work. Like, until you're in it, you just like, whoa. So that's where I go. It's rewarding. It's amazing. But that's why I'm just big on people understanding behind the scenes and the setup, and making sure if they do invest in it, that they really understand. Because I always say to people, and we would get it in design industry, but I always say you need a minimum of $100,000, and I'm not talking, our build or design things, to just set up the property, from your lounges to your cushions to your 3 to 4 sets of linen to the cutlery in your drawer. For an average 4-bedroom property, and we're not talking anything designer, you need $100K. And people are like, what? They just don't, they don't get it. They're like, but we can just go and, like, we might bring this from my house and we go to IKEA and Kmart and whatever. And I'm like, yes, you can, but everything's got to be durable. I've got a rule that it's got to be pretty and practical. I've also got a saying that if you can't cope with it being stolen or broken, don't put it in your holiday property. That's reality.
Yeah. So it's interesting you touched on about, like, all of those factors, because I think that this is most probably a niche that designers are getting into more and more, where you see they might do Airbnb styling, or like, so someone has bought the home up the coast, they're going to rent it out. And, I know, like, me and my family, we go to, there's 3 families, we go to the same holiday house every Easter, and it's perfect. There's 6 kids, 6 adults, and they have more than enough cutlery. They've got the barbecue things, they've got everything. And that's the reason why we go back, because it's easy.
Yeah.
If a designer is going down this path of working with people, I imagine it's very different from designing a residential home. What are some of the things that a designer needs to think about to make sure that at the end of the project, the client has a great holiday home?
Yeah. So as a designer, I still say that you need to really understand who the target market is. So if it's your client's own private holiday house, well, then it's similar to what we do in design. We really get deep and understand. But then you also need to understand what your client is saying their needs are, may not be exactly it, because it's very different on how you live in your everyday home to a holiday house. So think like if you're in a coastal location, you know, everyone's going to be walking in with sand on their feet. You don't want a holiday house to be precious at all. And then when it comes to, you know, when you're thinking about storage, that is a massive thing that is different. So when it comes to your wardrobes and your bedrooms, think about in our houses, you know, we want everything to function. We need to keep everything. In a holiday house, you're like, right, what's the average of the time that people are going to spend in the house? Is it 2 nights? Is it a week? Then that will kind of determine, you know, do you need drawers, or can you do an open style wardrobe, which is one of my favorite things to do because it looks good, it's practical, and it's good for the budget. So storage is very different. But then on the other side, you need a lot of storage where you can lock away, because, you know, if we just think about linen, generally you need 3 to 4 sets of everything. So, you know, if you're blessed with your house design that you can have a walk-in linen cupboard and that's all shelved out and it's locked off, that's the things you need to think of. And then the other thing is you want to make sure when you're incorporating your design, the spaces that are locked off, the guests aren't like, why is that locked? I want to get in there. It's just human nature. So it's making sure you work that into your design. So it's not like people are like, what? There's a big private side, or, you know, it's still, they still understand, but it's things like that.
Yeah.
It's also when it comes to spaces like your kitchen, you touched on a great point. Like, it is so annoying for a guest to go, there's not enough like cutlery. If there's 6 people staying at the property, there's not 6 in the drawer. Or if it's champagne glasses, I always say, you know, you need to supply at least double, because they will always smash one. Don't invest in expensive ones. That's where I'm like, you know, I know most designers are like, no to IKEA or Kmart. I'm like, go there, because you'll have your own little store in your storage of them. So it's things like that. You want to make the guest experience like top notch. It's your role as a designer for your client, or if it's their own holiday house, think they're going to want to generally bring family and friends. So they want to make that experience the same as if they were using it as a business. Your role as a designer is not only to do your regular job, but is to create that holiday feeling and to infuse that in every moment in the property that you can. The other thing is then, if we go more to like the styling side of things, you've got to think everything's got to be laundered. You know, when we go to a holiday property or a hotel and they've got that throw on the end of the bed and the cushions, and you just instantly throw it. It's like, you know, I'm a big fan of, you should not use cushions on a bed in holiday accommodation, because are they going to be laundered every time that someone stays there? I would say 99% no. So cleanliness is the number one thing that will turn a guest off. So you can have you can be the best designer and the best stylist, and it looks amazing, but then the guests, like, the cushion's dirty, or the clean, like, this just the way your design is, instantly your guests have just lost it. They're looking for things to go, oh, that's not right. So it's all those little details that really count. So it's combining the practical and the pretty is so big in a holiday accommodation.
Yeah. And you touched on something just before as well, like with the lockable areas. If you are like not just styling up an existing property, but possibly building from scratch, what are some of the things in terms of like actual floor plans? So you mentioned like a lockable area that's away from the guests. Are there other things like that you should take into consideration?
Yes. So this is another thing I see all the time when you're designing your floor plan, is make sure you understand the amount of guests that the property can accommodate. So if you can squeeze in 10 people, you know, it might be in sofa beds or whatever, but you need to make sure there is a seat at the dining table for every guest that is there. So that is where you really need to focus on your floor plan. And it's not just always about how many heads can we get in beds. It's about how many people can you actually accommodate in this property to function. So it's understanding that is a big thing. The next one is, when it comes to your bedrooms, is making sure you understand what size beds you're going to use. And that kind of goes back to your target market as well. So this is probably more focused if it's a business, where if you're going to be catering for, you know, if girls groups, girls weekends away, if it's corporate market, if it's retreats, then a thing that you're going to want to try and do is have split bed options. So it's making sure that it can do the king and the long and single. So making sure that your bedrooms actually accommodate that for that size.
Yeah.
So bedrooms are really important because guests need to spend the time in there. Like they're sleeping in there. You want to make it accommodate for them. And that ticks your target market. That gets more bookings as well. It makes it easy for people, when I just focus on the girls groups, yes, girls generally are okay to sleep in a bed together. But I'm now like, I'm not a princess, but I'm like, if I'm going away, I definitely want my own bed. I would much prefer my own room, but a no bed is a brainer. And then when it comes back to your target market, for my properties personally, and a lot of the ones I do for clients, we do put an ensuite into, I would say, majority to every guest room, but that's because corporates are a big target market of mine. I don't say to do that for everybody, because if yours is family orientated, then that's not needed. But if, say, your property is a bigger property and it can accommodate 2 to 3 families, you want to make sure then there's enough bathrooms to fit as well. So it's understanding that. That's the big difference of your everyday home. Like I'm not going to go give each of my sons a bathroom, even if I could, because no. Where holiday businesses, that's how you got to think of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The bathroom ones is a killer. Like, once again, so there's these 3 families. We go away at Easter and we go away at summer. And the one defining, like, the top criteria for the house is that every single family needs their own bathroom.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like, that just rules out a lot of houses.
Yep.
And I'm like,
yeah.
Seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, and that's what I think, if I can give advice to other designers who are going into this space, is you really need to get clear on the target market of who this property is catering for, because chances are your owner is not that clear on it. So to me, that's, if you can focus on that and do your research and really get clear on it, that's how then you work out your floor plan, your design, and you move forward, and you can create an amazing property that targets their market.
Yeah. So you've kind of answered a lot of this next question I was going to ask you, but you have done this several times over. So how many have you done now?
Oh, I don't even know. Oh, gosh.
Another question.
So our own personal projects, we've done 3. So we had the Solar Gerringong farmhouse, then we did the Soul Cottage, and then we did the Pause. So they're our 3.
Yeah.
And then client-wise, I think like probably another 10, I would say. And then currently I'm working on we're doing a deconstructed hotel, and that has 6-7 properties in the one project. So
what is a deconstructed hotel?
Yeah. So my client came up with this, and at first I was like, what is that? And then explained it to me and went, oh, that is so good. And it's like, kind of, if I rewind to what I said, create your own. He's created his own niche. So basically in Berry, so again, South Coast, which is an iconic town country, he has gone and bought within that town 6 properties, and it's a little town. And so his goal is to have 50 guest rooms, all with en suites, so he can accommodate 100 people. He has then also gone and bought a commercial property, so it will also have accommodation, but it has a commercial restaurant there. So think events, corporates, weddings, but weddings isn't actually the main market. And he's getting a hospitality partner. So his idea is they're creating this place where in Berry you can go and, enjoy the actual country air and sit there and have really nice food and relax. Think of it as like a mini version of the farm, because there's not actually a place like that in Berry at the minute. So then everyone who stays at his accommodation can come to the restaurant. They breakfast is included. He'll down the track have a bus to pick everyone up from. So it's basically a deconstructed hotel. So it's a pretty cool concept. And I'm like, when he explains it, he goes, yep, there's 50 rooms. We have the restaurant, we have the space. They're free to come and use it, but they can go and stay with it, pick the accommodation that works for them. So
And so
it'll be interesting.
The 50 rooms are across a more traditional motel kind of thing?
No, they're all holiday properties.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the first ones that we opened.
It's kind of like the best of both worlds.
It is. So Maple opened about a month ago. So it's 2 4-bedroom cottages.
Yeah.
So each property has pools as well. We're doing the townhouses over the road, which is Rubus. So they're 3 4-bedroom townhouses next to each other.
Yeah.
And then he's already got Linnaeus Farm, which is like a stunning,
Yes,
like absolute, like it's, it takes your breath away. So
yes,
we've got that property. Yeah.
I have seen, the number of times I've sent that to my husband going, can we go here? Can we go here? Go here? It looks phenomenal.
Yeah. And then there'll be, they've all got names based on the like Linnaeus collections, the Carl Linnaeus youth grouped plants. So they're all a name from there. Then there is one property that will start next year as Papilio. It will be the one that's almost like a hotel. So it has 5 guest rooms, and that one's more like a hotel concept. So basically he's ticking off every box. You've got the luxe of the luxe. You've got your hotel, like guest house concept. You've got your family houses. You've got your group accommodation next to each other. And then you've got the big lodge style, which is next to the restaurant. So it's definitely interesting and a great project to kind of be part of. But yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And yeah, it does, because so often as well, like when it comes to these kind of places, it's like, oh, that would be lovely, but we've got small kids. Like it's not going to work. So wow, that is a really ingenious idea. I'm very intrigued. So kind of back to you, you've done 3 of your own homes, these kind of holiday homes. I know you're building your own home at the moment. And you mentioned before your husband is the builder. Yeah. How does that dynamic work? Because I think this is a common kind of combination, designer, wife, builder, husband, kind of similar to you, like 10 years ago, we'll buy the holiday home down the coast or up the coast and we'll do this kind of thing. How has that been for you guys?
It's, I just laugh because it's interesting. I have enjoyed working with other builders in the last few years because I think it's made me appreciate Ben's work as well. And I always knew he was an amazing builder, and I always refer to him as my encyclopedia. And I think I honestly go, yes, I can do design. I think my work is great, but I also go, I think he's my gem because I have a builder and he's really good. But by working with other builders, I'm like, oh, okay, yep, there's some contrast there. So it's made me appreciate him more. So I would say to anyone who does work with their husband in this kind of capacity, if you have an opportunity to work with another builder or someone else in the industry, do it, because you'll actually just come back to appreciating the relationships and your strengths and your weaknesses as well. But yeah, it's funny. And because we also do, partnerships and collaborations. We're currently filming the build of our next series, of our next project. So it's funny because Ben does not like a camera. So he's been hashtag camera shy builder. So then it kind of works. But it's like anything. It's that juggle of, can you turn personal and professional life off? I don't think you can. I don't think it would matter if my husband was a builder or not. I think when you have your own business, it's part of it, isn't it? Like it's not, I wish there was that magic switch. You could turn it off. So I would say if you ask my children that question, they would probably have, they'd be like, oh my goodness, mum and dad are always just talking about work, blah, blah, blah. And now my eldest son, he's doing carpentry apprenticeship with my husband. So that's even brought it on to a new capacity. I feel like with this new world. But yeah, it's interesting. It has its challenges. Do we always keep it professional? No. Do our clients see us have arguments? No. A common thing, they'll be like, no, Ben said we can't do that. I'm like, yes, I can. Of course I can. Find a way to make it work. Or the opposite way. I'm like, yes, we can do this. And then it's like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I actually go, when Soul Home and BAM Constructions combine, I'm like, that's when the magic happens. That's when, our projects just really infuse what I call soul in a home. Yeah, it's challenging, but I think it is the best relationship as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So one of the other things for anyone who follows you on Instagram, you love Bali. You spend a lot of time in Bali. Your interiors evoke so much of that kind of island feel, which is perfect for a holiday home. But one of the things that, once again, I'm sure a lot of designers look at it and go, oh, that would be so good to bring in things from Bali. I'm sure it's so much cheaper and easier and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to guess it is not easy, and it's not the walk in the park that people might think it is. What kind of led you down that path? Why did you go down that path? I mean, and how has that part of your business evolved? Because I imagine that's a large part of the attraction. Maybe not a large part, but it is part of the reason why people want to work with you.
Yeah, look, again, not really planned, just happened. So I can speak Indonesian. So that I would say is the number one like trick of it, because I can converse with, the people who can't speak the language at all.
Yeah.
So that is where I can find the products, the people to work with. That has been absolute pure gold for me. And it's also what I love it, because to me, I'm like, I can speak Indonesian, still got this. And it is funny because I did Indonesian at high school back in the day.
Yeah, right.
And I only purely did it because my elder sister had done it, and I knew she went to Bali on a holiday. Again, no interest in it. But it's funny that it's the only thing that I've probably used from high school, and I've just been able to keep it up because we do go there quite a bit.
Yeah.
I always say to people, I go to Bali a lot, but I don't go, I still would do the touristy things, go and stay in, nice restaurants. But we also go off the beaten track. My children have kids the same age that they've known, and they've grown up with them. So to me, Bali is a place where we're really connected to, and I find that we all practice gratitude. So to be honest, me creating and bringing products in from Bali, it wasn't so much a business move. It was just a way I felt like I could give back to the island that has given my family and I so much.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I find with these products, when I bring them in, that Balinese gratitude, they're just so high on life, and it doesn't matter how little they have or any problems. They're just like, oh, life's all good. So to me, I can infuse that Balinese way of life in these properties. And often people would be like, oh, Balinese style. No. And I'm like, no, my products that I bring in, they don't look Balinese. They're not like, the carvings. And I'm like, they're not like that. And I love that I get to support the people who are making these products. I'm supporting villages here. And you get that direct, connection. So to me, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
About logistically how you do it. It is challenging, but again, it's like with anything, you need the right contacts. You need someone in Bali that you can trust and work with. You need someone on the ground there to manage it. And then once you have that, it's not actually that hard. Like I just placed an order this morning for this custom marble basin we're having brought in for my house, because the first one they'd actually made wrong, and it only turned up 6 weeks ago. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I was like, oh yeah, right, okay, wrong. So you can't just go, oh sorry, can you refund me and send me a new one? It's it's like anything. And then when it comes to the cost side of things, yes, it is a lot cheaper to buy products over there. However, not all products are. It used to be a lot cheaper. It's some things you are still better off to source in Australia. I would say with furniture, it is still a lot cheaper to just buy through your own supplier over here. It's things like the Bali doors that we do. We've toyed with creating a business and opening that up, because that is probably the most in-demand product of what we do. And I'm torn, because I'm like, do I really want another business? No, I don't think so, because there's a lot of logistics with that. Like you have to warehouse it, you got to freight it. When you start to get into that side of it, the custom side of things, where I feel like it's also a way, I think you said before, is that why people come to me? No, but I think it's part of, I think there is that little bit of it. So I'm like, I'll use them for my own projects and my clients when it suits the design. So maybe it's something that I just keep for that, special touch with soul home projects. Yeah. It's interesting, but I would say if you were going to import some products, potentially try and find someone who's already doing that within your area, and see if you could just bring in a few products to test. Put some, just test it out that way before you go do a whole container yourself.
Yeah, that would be a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot because with a container, it's not based on weight.
No.
So it's all just the size. So if you buy, they've got stunning antique pots over there. But that means you're like, you want to stuff everything in the pots.
Yeah.
Because you're paying for a container, like I think the last container cost about $8,000 to bring in. You want to put all the products in. So then it can become quite stressful because you're like, oh, what else do I need? Like,
Yeah.
and then you don't want to just end up with items that you're not going to use. So you really need to make sure it's viable for the amount of products you want to bring in.
Yeah. And do you do it very project specifically? Or are you, so you kind of have, you've got your schedule, everything's kind of set in place. You need, down to like, I know I need 6 of those pots and not one more. Or is it a bit more of I like that, I'll bring it in and we'll see where we can use it?
So it would be project based. So if I just think about the container that we've just brought in, or the last one, that was based on our next build, our house, the maybe forever. So we went and sourced, I would say 90% of the products that we needed, but then I'll go get extra pieces. I'm like, oh, okay, those pots are really nice. I know that, I knew with one of the Linears projects, perfect for them. So I'll add extra pieces in, and I'll add pieces that I go, oh, they're unique. I won't ever find that again.
Yeah.
I'll put them in, but I wouldn't go and get a whole container just because I can. Yeah. Because then, yes, we have a factory, which is more used for our construction company, but then I'm taking up all the space that they need for build. So if you're going to do that, you need to have the space. You need to set it up to be able to that's why people do it as a business. It is a business if you're going to do it like that. But for me, project based. So the next container we'll bring in will be coming, I think, January, and that's on one of my client projects, and we'll be using quite a bit from there. It has a similar vibe to the pause. Yes. So that was their actual that was their brief. We want the pause. You're the inspiration. And I was like, okay, number one, great to be inspired by it, but I would never go and replicate something exactly to another property because every property is different. But I was like, okay, I understand what you mean. So yes, obviously I will go and get those timber doors. I will go get some of my brass lighting. I will go get some antique pots. I will get these one-off piece like bench seats and things. So yeah, project-based for me at this current time.
Yeah. And is there anything from, like, you've obviously brought in a lot of things from there, and I'm sure you've experimented and trial and error with a lot of things. Are there certain things that you would never bring in? Like, you're just like, no, these are not the area of expertise of these people?
I wouldn't say necessarily the area of expertise. It's about how items travel and then how they adapt to when they get here. So I did have a buffet made in that container that we brought in recently, because the one that we're trying to find for a client's project, it was out of stock, and I went, you know what, I'm going to get this made because it's exactly what I need. I was like, go me, I've got this, filled the void. Anyway, that buffet has basically split and warped because it hasn't climatized to the temperature. So to me, I'm not experienced enough on the furniture side of it to go, to me, I'm like, don't touch furniture, especially tables, because the timbers are glued together and they're the ones that it's not the workmanship. The workmanship is amazing. Actually, the workmanship over there is sometimes a lot better than we get over here because there's so much attention to detail. Yeah. But to me, it's understanding the climatizing of things. It's an issue. Yeah.
So something that, when you were talking about your husband, or something that's kind of looped through the whole conversation. So you obviously work closely with your husband, and you obviously have a lot of other business ideas that you could go down. Like you're obviously very entrepreneurial. So you have that, like, new ideas almost every day. One of the things that, and once again, anyone who has been following you on Instagram will see there's been snippets of Soul 2.0. And that is a bit of more of a collaboration with yourself and your husband. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So it's interesting because everybody now knows me as, the holiday property designer, which I think is amazing. And I still will, I love that part of my business and will definitely continue with it, because why would I not? But my true passion is building. And it's people understanding what happens in a build process, or understanding what they need to know and then when to step back. Yeah. So something that I always feel like is a massive problem or a massive, like, missing link is people understanding what's important in a build and understanding how trades work, and that they're the experts in the field and you need to let them do what they do. Yeah. So basically Soul Home 2.0 is, I think it's called simplifying building and design. So it's just basically, if I dare say, dumbing things down. Yeah. So often when people go and talk to a builder, they're going to build this great new home. They're super excited. They've gone through with the architect. Yeah. They may have had an interior designer and they haven't got the builder involved. And it is an instant, usual dream killer moment because the builder's like, yeah, that's amazing. That's great. And, you might ask the budget question. There may not be a budget, but, they'll be like, how much is it going to cost? And then he's like, well, I'm not a magician because how do you want it completed? We can do anything. Yeah. Because builder can do literally anything that you want, according to BCA and your council plans. But then people get really annoyed that a builder cannot then give them a pricing that can be like, don't hold me to it, but if I just work on square meter, your project's going to be $2 million. And they're like, what? And they're thinking it's 500,000. So it goes from the dream. They're so excited for the builder to come. And it's like dream maker and it's just like dream killer. Yeah. So that's one part of it. So getting people to be clear on, a builder's not a magician. Yeah. He needs to understand what you want in a home. So what flooring you're going to use is really important. But then the other part of Soul Home 2.0 is what I want an owner to start to focus on, understand is, we all love a pretty home. Like that's why we buy, it's why we're on social media. Like, come on, it's why we buy magazines. But I'm like, a pretty home, if that's not practical, it becomes pretty ugly really quickly. Yeah. So it's getting owners to understand more about products. So, people always say, oh, you always talk about plasterboard. I'm like, I know, because yes, I've worked with gyprock, but what happens behind your walls? Everyone focuses on the paint color. And I'm like, but what about we focus what's behind the paint color? Because I can guarantee you, over the lifeline of living in that home, you're going to change the color paint. It's not the most important decision, but the insulation that you're using, the type of plasterboard you're using, to understanding, the builder's recommending, pretty much everyone now uses blue treated timber, but what's behind the walls is more important than the paint. Yeah. So it's getting people to understand about how they live and making their decisions on their products. Just not trying to get people to be even more overwhelmed. It's just going, okay, so do you have young children and is their bedroom potentially near the front of the house? So I would be spending a few more $1,000s to put like noise sound insulation in your walls, less chance of going to wake up your baby versus forgo that fancy light that you like. And when you break it down like that, people go, oh, yes, where a builder's not going to, and then people will, on the other stretch, will build a house and they'll hear about this new insulation. They're like, why did the builder not tell me? Oh, that would have babies waking up all the time. Like, oh my God, my builder he wasn't thorough. And it's like, but the builder's not going to go, have you thought about using sound insulation because your baby might wake up? So there's just that gap. So that's what I'm hoping. And that's my passion. I'm doing this as a business, but honestly, I'm doing it because it's what I truly lights me up. And I could talk about that all day because I'm like, when we build and design houses, it is an expensive process. It is more expensive today. People think because we're building our own home, it's going to be cheap. I'm like, oh my God, our house is so far over budget from what, we expected. And it's like, when you're spending your hard-earned money and you want this home that you want to live in and you want to wake up every day with what I say, experience that holiday feeling in your own home, they're the key things that can make a difference. So I'm like, I think, you can go hire a designer like us, outsource the pretty side of it, get your spatial planning right, but you need to have some understanding on what goes into your build. And it's just also simplifying like the build talk. And I think this is a problem I see with a lot of designers. They get intimidated by trades and builders on a site. Yes. And I get it because, there's some builders that will put you to the test and I'm just like, oh, okay, here we go. Come on. Where I get it. It's really intimidating if you're not comfortable with it. And if you don't know how to speak the lingo of what they're talking about, then you don't know what you're saying. They're not listening to you. You're not listening to them. And then designers are like, well, I want to, and they're just like, what?
Yeah.
So it's just basically breaking it down and just simplifying building and design for all.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I've got a couple of questions. So first, because this has come up with a couple of people, both for things I've interviewed on the podcast and just in general conversation, since COVID and the rising cost of building, like it's not going anywhere. It's not going south. Like it's where it is. And it is like what you could build for 100K pre-COVID, you're not getting for 500K now. What a lot of people are doing is that they are bringing the builder into the project a lot sooner. And I think this is like, I'm a big advocate for this. I think the builder needs to be part of your team from day one. And part of being an experienced designer or architect is having the contacts to go, can you come and give us kind of like a high level talk, like budget, so that the client can understand what they can get for their money before they go. And because as you described, it is the worst thing. Like the builder comes out looking like an absolute, like just the worst person in the world, because the architects and the designers have designed this beautiful home and the client's fallen in love with it. And then they can't afford to build it. And so there's the whole project then just turns sour and it's awful. Do you think more designers and architects should be bringing the builders in at the start?
110%.
Yeah.
It is so done backwards. Like the builder is and not because I'm just married to a builder. Yeah. I always think that I'm just but I'm like, it's the problem. The builder is the person who you're paying the money to build the house. The builder is the person who needs to understand what it is you want out of it. They're the ones also who they do this day in and day out. So they can see things that an architect may not. And they're like, hey, why don't we build it like this? Because this is actually a lot more cost effective and it's more efficient and we could use this product. I see that over and over. So I will only do projects where the builder is involved from day one.
Yeah.
So it's also, if you don't have a contact with a builder, you ask the architect or the building designer, who are the builders that you work with so we can get them involved, because most builders will be getting their leads through the architect building designer because they're a team. It's just like a builder and his electrician and a plumber.
Yeah.
They're a team. When people will say, can I use my own electrician because Joe, and like, I always just say to people, okay, so if you've got a football team, would you now come and replace the winger? No, you wouldn't. So I'm like, it's the same thing. You need to think of your builder, a designer, your architect, even down to your certifier, the engineer. The engineer is a big, big one, because then the engineer, so you always notice in quotes, builders' quotes are always subject to engineers' details and drawings, because a builder can come in and quote it of what the architect's done, and then the engineering just blows it out of the water. So again, it's like the architect, if the builder's working together, they've got the same engineer, so they're consulting them. So what happens behind the scenes with that is, as say the architect building designer is doing the plans, they'll also be on the phone to the builder saying, hey, I'm just working out these details. What do you think of this? Yeah. That's all the gold that's going on for it to happen. And it's not as easy though as it sounds, because you need to have the contacts to make that happen. And then I'm like, if you don't have the contacts, and maybe it's the reverse, maybe you do have a builder and you're like, I really want to work with that builder. My biggest piece of advice is offer to pay that builder to do some preliminary costings, because it is the best money you will ever spend. Yeah. They will, number one, respect you since day dot. Yep. When a builder is doing the costings, like I see my husband here all the time at the dining table, because he'll never use the office. And it can take him over a week to get preliminary costings instead of him being on site. Yeah. So number one, you're going to get a builder that's invested in your project. You're then going to be able to get some, his team coming on board, some recommendations. So 100%, if you can talk to people, ask them, question, like builders will recommend architects, building designers to you. architects will refer them, interior designers, like again for our industry, get those contacts yourself, because like for me, I become generally the first port of call.
Yeah.
I'm the first person they ring because I think, well, no, people know I've got the ability to pull a team together.
Yeah.
I can run with it. So if you're an interior designer and you've got those people in your hands, you're going to get more quality work. You're going to, like you said, things go sour really quickly. It goes from, oh my God, to boom, we're out, like can't do this house. Where to avoid that, also as a designer, we can go and create the most amazing spaces.
Yeah.
And then we can be the dream killers or look like the idiots to the clients, because then they're like, whoa, that's out of your budget. Or it's not always even budget. It's just, how is that doable? It's not doable with the build. So again, with me, when I'm doing my design process and I'm in concept, and even when I'm doing documentation, I'm consulting the builder. I'm ringing him and sending him details. Is this right? And, I'm sometimes maybe like, just help. I don't know. Can you just have a look? Yeah. That's a build thing. It's a build thing. Like, know your boundaries.
Yeah.
And pull in the people. So yes, having that team I think is the best way when you're doing a custom build.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting. Like, I don't think people appreciate how much effort goes into building out a quote. And I think from a builder, and I think people get frustrated when like a builder might give them like a 1-page document and they're like, and it's like, well, you're actually asking them to work for free. Because if you think about how many quotes a builder might put together over a year and versus how much work they actually win, they're spending a lot of time not being paid.
Yeah.
And so I think being like, realizing that it's actually a substantial amount of work to get a detailed quote, which is going to make sure like you need a detailed quote. Like a 1-pager is not going to cut it. I suppose one of the objections that people like, I think it's a bit of a mind shift for clients, because they're like, well, I've got to get 3 quotes. So what am I meant to do? Am I meant to like start with one builder and then like, move on to another one? How do you handle that objection? Because I don't actually think that's correct personally. Like, I think it can't be a price-driven decision. You build a selection. Like, I think there's so much more than goes into it. And most importantly, you need to be able to have a drink on a Friday afternoon on site with them. Like, they are going to be in your life for 2 years. Like, it is a very important relationship. And so it can't be chosen on price.
It cannot be on price, because I also say when you're a person, you've got 3 quotes, each builder structures their quotes different.
Yeah.
So whilst the cheapest quote may appeal to people, they're not comparing, it's like comparing apples and oranges together. Yeah. So unless you've structured your scope of works, which I would say they're not usually to the way a builder would, and you're literally got the same cost and you're comparing that in a spreadsheet, you can't. Like you literally can't. Like, yes, that's a weakness, but it's not going to change. So the 3 quote thing, I think if you're doing like a small project, and like you may be doing a bathroom renovation, and but then you've also got the other problem of, can you get 3 builders to actually do your quotes? Yeah. So that's it. One of the things people also get really offended is when a builder says, no, I can't quote your job. They might come out and then they're like, no. And then they're like, oh, and they get annoyed at them. It's like, actually, they're doing you a favor, because then it's saving you time, because they're not interested in that job. So if they're not interested from that point, they're not your person. They don't want to work with you for whatever reasons. It could be timing, it could be location, it could be anything. But that I always say, I'm definitely, definitely a little bit woo-woo, my kids call me. But I'm like, if it feels right in your gut, when you meet a builder, and if you have that connection with him, and you have, like, going back to kind of what Soul Home 2.0 is, and you have the ability to go, I just don't understand. I don't understand what you've sent me. Can you just please just break this down for me? Because you've got to, like you said, you've got to be able to communicate with them. Yeah. If your build is a year, they've got a seat at your dining table probably for 2 years, because you've got a year of planning and the year of the build, and things will go pear-shaped. Yep. Every build, there's a saying, there's no problems, it's only solutions. Every build. And it's like, I always say a problem is an opportunity for success.
Yeah.
So that you need to be able to work with a builder to be able to go, oh my God, I hate it. And they're like, okay, but just wait because this will happen. So I don't think the 3-quote thing is actually what you need to do. In some cases, yes, but I think if you've got that gut feel, obviously still do your due diligence. If you've got a good builder, they will want to give you like their previous works and clients. And then if you've got a good builder, those clients will want to talk to you about the builder because they're a builder's, you know, you're only as good as your last build when it comes to building. You can be building for 10 years, same as we can be designing for 10 years, and it goes pear-shaped or something goes wrong because of builder's expertise. It's not the case. And then the one last thing I would say is with builders is often you'll go past a project and you'll be like, oh, that's really odd for that builder to do that project.
Yeah.
Because a builder doesn't actually get say in always the aesthetic side of things. So let's say builders come into the process a lot further on. And like, don't judge a builder like a book by its cover, because you may go, oof, that design's a bit not, you know. I think all designers, we do that. We're like, oh, we could have done that better. Where it's about understanding the workmanship and it's about understanding the relationship that the client had, and then looking at the attention to details. That's what's important.
Oh, I think it's really interesting because I do think I think it's part of the industry that is shifting. I think it needs to most probably happen a lot sooner or a lot quicker. But I do think that bringing builders into the conversation, and as you said, like, I think for so long, it's kind of like we'll get an architect and then the architect will do his thing or her thing. And then maybe they'll bring in interior design. It's like, actually, no, you need to build that team day one. They all need to be there because it really is. We all have our own skill sets that are very complementary if they work well together. But I think I think people just I just don't think they understand the process enough.
They're just not educated on it. You don't know what you don't know. I think that's what the classic case is.
Yeah. So one other thing I'd love to get your take on just really quickly is, and this comes up a lot because I think a builder who's never really worked with an interior designer before can sometimes automatically see us as a headache. And if you are a relatively new designer or maybe don't have the most boisterous of personalities, it can be super intimidating because the builder will get into the client's ear and then you feel like you look like an idiot, and it can be daunting. You know, there's been times when I've walked on site and I have known what the tradie has done is wrong, but I'm like, oh, what do I do here, kind of thing. What are some of your tips for designers working with builders to kind of make that a much smoother process?
Buy them a case of beer. No. No. Actually, it can help sometimes.
It can help.
It can. It literally can. Like, so what I would say is at the beginning of the process is you go in and you're like, you're the expert on building. I'm here doing the design and the selections, and, you know, that's what they think we're here for, right? So you kind of go, you're the expert and I really want to work with you. How about I send over to you, if you wouldn't mind, what I've done, and if you can give me some feedback on if there's anything can improve. If you can win them over at the beginning, and they're not all that easy, trust me. You know how I said I only work with builders I know? There was one case recently and it was like that every day, and I was just like so it's not easy, and it can be a process, and you may have to do that for like a couple of months. And should you have to do that? No. Should they just respect you from the beginning? Yes. But again, they don't know what your role is. They think that you're going to be there and tell them how to build. So if you can let them know what your role is and that they're there to make the magic, this is what you're wanting to create. And if you can share it together, that is the key. You just have to win them. I've seen designers go on site and they're like, I want this, 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 and this, and exactly like this. I know this, blah, 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 because, and I see it, they're intimidated. So they're coming out thinking they're going to be really powerful and just own their space. So they're not looking like they're intimidated. I'm like, it's the worst thing you can do. Be like, hey, I really want this. This is really important. This attention to detail. You know what? If you may need to tweak this, can you just let me know? But this attention to detail here, like, it has to happen. So then they're like, oh, okay, cool. Yep, we get it. And like, if you can, and understand that builders, trades, even architects, clients, they will all say they'll communicate with you the whole way through. They will not. They will not. Because, and it's not that they're being rude. It's just builders are like juggling 20 million things. Again, go to a building site and watch a builder, how many times they're on the phone. Yeah. They are like, I would not be a builder if like, oh, it's like we're just one speck in the whole build process. So if you can get them to understand the details that are really important, get them to work from your plans, then that's the key. And I would say once a builder and a newer builder, a newer designer, they actually see that you are saving time with your.
Yes.
If you educate them on that, because it's like, hey, you don't need to go back and ask the clients any of these things. If there's anything that needs tweaking, just give me a call. Heaps quicker and we'll nut it out. It's done. You are a time saver. You are a cost saver for them. If you can get into the build language, and at the end, you're all there for the same goal. You all want the best for that project. You all want it to look great. You want your client to be like, this is amazing, because then they'll sing your praises. But it is to win them over. You've just got to be confident, but also make sure that they're the ones that are in control, because they are the builders on the site. And if you can not play the game, because I would say most builders aren't, if once they get to know you, they won't. And it's just little things. Just be helpful. What I would say is make sure from your end you communicate every single thing that's said on site, because do not trust because you're on site and you're like, okay, there's a, I don't know, move this wall back 20 mil, blah, blah, blah. And then you come to site and you're like, you didn't move the wall. And he's like, oh, what? It's not on your plan. And you're like, ugh. So just document everything, you know, find out how the builder ticks. So, you know, we use Asana for project management. Does my husband use Asana? No. But I'll still put it in there, because when they're like, but you didn't, I'm like, it's there. So say, for example, for him, I will, you know, I just had to update some plans. I've texted them to him. So ridiculous. But I know that he'll literally look at them, he'll send them off, he'll get them printed, and they'll be stuck all over the site. You know, another builder I work with, he's amazing on Asana and on top of it, but just communicate from your end. And then you can be like, hey, you know, I actually did see there, you've probably like, I don't know what's happened, but can we just work with it? Don't be like, I'm right, you're wrong, because at the end of the day, we all want the same solution. I think that's what people can forget.
I think as well, just remembering, like, the builders know what they're doing, but we also know what we're doing. But we most probably we do bring very different skill sets to it. And I think if you can work with a builder, and like, I always go in and I'm like, I just ask a million questions. If I don't understand something, I'll ask a million questions, because I'm like, well, at least I'll know for the next job and all that kind of stuff. But then actually what happens is the builder is like, oh, you are so good to work with. Now I will not do a project unless there is an interior designer. And so they will become one of your biggest advocates and one of your 100%. Biggest lead generators. So I think it's a relationship that maybe interior designers don't always put enough.
I don't think they do. And because the worst thing for a client is to have a builder and a designer who don't get along. That's not good. No. And that can happen a lot. So you need to do your absolute best to make sure that there's a happy relationship along the way, because we all know if it's like that, you're just not going to get the best result out of it. So designers 100% need to work on the relationship with a builder, because they will give you work. Like, I would say most of my work, I get connections through builders that I work with, because once a builder has worked with a designer, you only need to do one job to win a builder over, because they're like, plumber comes, there's your plumbing plans, done. And you're like, oof. The thing I would say is a lot of designers, and this is again knowing your client as well, and obviously the budget that goes with it, a lot of designers will just go, there's your plans, done. And it's like, no. I would strongly recommend for designers who are working with a builder is you need to make sure that site visits are included in your scope of work, and it's a non-negotiable, because a lot of people be like, oh no, I like, and because the builder will be like, no, you don't need that. So it's like, no, you do. You need to be there. And a simple way to just reword it to a client or a builder is like, hey, from my plans, if I can see that light actually needs to be moved out 30, 40 mil because it's, I can just see it's better.
Yeah.
Maybe my plans are wrong. Maybe I did get it wrong.
Yeah.
Who knows? But that's going to be a lot more effective than at the end when I'm like, we need to patch a wall. Like, not even worried about the cost, but I'm like, it just has to happen. So I'm like, I'm here to save problems. That's what my site visits are to do. I'm like, it still blows my mind how many designers don't do site visits at all the critical inspections. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah. And look, I think that comes down to, sometimes them thinking they can just hand it off and the builder is going to build exactly what's on the plan. And it's like, that just doesn't normally happen, really, because there's site conditions and things change, and it's a moving beast. Like, you've
got to adapt. You've got to adapt with it.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So I think we've covered, I think I'm going to know the answer to this, but what are you looking forward to in your business in the next 12 months?
Building our own home finally. So the Maybe Forever is in process right now. They're actually putting the first floor frames up. So this has been a 2.5-year process. It has been a challenge, is all I would say. So by this time next year, we'll be living in that, which will be amazing.
Yeah.
As I said, the Linears collection, the deconstructed hotel, that should be, that's all happening as well. And like I said earlier, I'm really looking forward to the Soul Home 2.0, which is, you can see how much I light up when I talk about this side of it, and just really being there to be able to help educate people in a place to turn to. So that's Soul Home 2.0 in the next 12 months.
Awesome. And how can our community reach out and find you?
Yeah, you usually find me hanging out on Instagram at Soul Home AUS. And then my website, which will be opening soon, very soon. I've been saying that for too long, is just soulhome.com.au.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, thank you so much, Simone. That was an amazing discussion. I think that there were so many great little bits in there for so many different people. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for listening to me.
That was such a great episode with Simone. I got so much out of it. And from someone who has been watching Simone's journey on Instagram for many years now, it was great to hear kind of the behind the scenes of some of those things, especially the early days of Soul and really putting Gerringong on the map. I think a couple of things that really stood out to me in the conversation was around, if you are working with a client and designing a holiday home for them that is going to be used as a business, to really think about those nitty-gritty things around how many glasses, how does it work, do you have enough linen, do you really need scatter cushions on the beds, because are they really going to be washed every time? So there's really kind of functional parts of running a business that is what a holiday home is. So I think that's something that's quite different from designing someone's residential home. So I thought they were great tips for people who are thinking of getting into that area of design or who are in that area of design. The other part of our chat that I really loved, and I almost wished that we could do a whole other podcast episode on it, was around that relationship with builders. And as designers, it is so important that we see them as our colleagues and as people who are going to help us grow our businesses. That is some of the most important relationships that we can have in our working life. And I think sometimes, for multiple different reasons, we can get it a bit wrong. But I think that having an open mind and going into those relationships, knowing that we can get so much out of them, is so important. So I really, really hope you enjoyed this chat with Simone. and will take a lot away from it. If you are loving the podcast, I would really love for you to leave a review. It helps people find it. It also helps other people understand what the podcast is about. So if you are loving the podcast, I'd love for you to share it with your design friends, but also leave a review would be great. Thanks very much, everyone, and I will see you for our next design dialogue. Thank you for listening to this design dialogue. I hope you have found it full of inspiration and helpful information to take into your design studio. If you like the podcast and want to hear more, consider sharing it or writing a review, as it helps us reach more people, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to unlock the power of effortless studio management and elevate your design business to new heights, please follow the links in our show notes to see how more time to design can help you build a better business. Have a great week, and I will see you for our next design dialogue.